Hey, this is Cam, and I'm getting spending the evening talking with a great friend, great high school friend, Randy Rains. Randy and I went to Malden High School together, which is outside of Greenville, South Carolina. Randy, update us on where you're at now and a little bit about your family.
Yeah, no, I'm down in Atlanta today, but I am a Maryland, Virginia guy, born and raised in that area. Went to Malden for 2 years, but got scared away. I couldn't. I knew I'd never play basketball behind you, so I had to transfer out, move back up north, and get my name up there versus down in Malden. But yeah, so my family and I were in Atlanta. I've got 3 kids, beautiful wife, and we've been here for about 13, 14 years now.
Man, that's great. So Randy and I, he left after his sophomore year in high school, and we stayed in touch forever. I mean, we stayed in touch the entire time. But how did we do it before email?
You know, that's a good question. I think honestly, Cam, I think we actually wrote a few letters, to be quite honest, the old school writing letters. And then a
Christmas card, we sent a Christmas card or some once a year letter or something.
Yeah, it wasn't a lot, but just enough to always know that you were out there and vice versa, I guess. But, there's very few people. You can ask my wife, there's very few people that I keep in touch with throughout my life, and especially Malden. I was there for 2 years, as my parents went through some a divorce and all that good fun stuff that people go through, and then had to get out of there. Like I said, it wasn't the right place for me. I didn't want to sit on the bench, and I didn't want to really live in Malden. But
no, we'd have been the backcourt of that 3-21 team. We always won 3 and lost 21 every year. So I set a record for the losingest high school player in the history of South Carolina basketball. So, but that's another time to talk, another thing to talk about for us. But we did keep in touch through the years. And then I had a meeting in D.C. and I knew you were living up there. And we went to dinner one night, just kind of, I did have when cell phones came out, I guess I had your number to call, during that period in the early 90s. And,
yep.
And then we just kept in touch. And as we had families, we did get the Christmas card every year. From each other, we would swap those. So.
And then the internet came about, late 90s. And then from there, it was pretty easy keeping in touch, right? So, yeah, it's been great, man. I'm thrilled that we're still friends. I love what you've done. And like I said, there's very few people I keep in touch with, but I respect and admire the original Cam Corbin.
Back at you. I love that friendship. Randy's a big Maryland guy, and that was one of our relationships is Tar Heels versus Maryland. We would communicate during those days. So I wanted to spend a little time talking Maryland sports with Randy. And Randy's one of the best social media posters ever. He's top 5 humor and funny.
Number 4.
And so, Randy, you got a choice. Who's your favorite coach, Lefty or Gary? Lefty Driesell or Gary Williams?
Okay, that's an unfair question. However, I did think about this as you mentioned. We're going to talk about Maryland basketball, and I went to Lefty's basketball camp. I loved Lefty, and he built everything there, right? Then Gary Williams came in after the Bob Wade debacle, and enough about that. Gary Williams went to national championship, probably should have won 2, but won 1. But if you made me pick, just because of the full picture of everything he did, I'd have to go with Lefty. Now, and that's hard for me to pick, right? Because I can tell you I actually set up a screen name when I worked at AOL called Garyland. And people actually thought I was Gary Williams on there, right? They'd go, hey, Coach, what's going to happen today? And I am a diehard Terp fan, and I love 2002 and the years around Gary's big reign. But, you look at what Lefty did at Davidson. You look what he did at Maryland. And then, of course, he was pushed out of Maryland, went off to James Madison, and even Georgia State. He took Georgia State to the NCAA. So, Lefty was a character, and he was a lot of fun to watch. So I'll go with Lefty.
Yeah. It's a good guy. He was a great guy. Both of those coaches, and I dreamed about being a coach, and those were 2 guys that I watched and followed, and a little bit of my early coaching days got to meet them both and know them, and know their staffs really, and Chuck also. So Lefty left under the cloud of the Len Bias death. So where were you, and what were your emotions when you heard first about Len's death, Len Bias?
Oh, man. Len's on my top 5 players of all time of Maryland basketball. When he passed away, I was actually at work for a company called Robinson Terminal. It was a subsidiary of the Washington Post. And I heard the news on the radio. That's all we had back then, right? And I didn't believe it. They said, he'd been killed out on a journey, and he may be dead, he may not be. So but when they finally confirmed that he had passed away, it felt like I had lost a family member. And you know, and I did meet Len Bias. I was not tight friends with him. I had met him. I will go to my grave saying this about him, Cam. I truly believe that was the only time he ever did cocaine. And
it's a fascinating story.
it is. And
yeah.
So I'll go with that. But I was in the DC area, right in Alexandria, when it happened, 10 miles from the University of Maryland, and I was heartbroken.
Well, and another topic for another day would be the trajectory of basketball. Like the Celtics would have not had down years if they would have had him. That's a topic for another day. And so we all know Maryland basketball, and Randy and I could spend hours also talking about how they should not have left the ACC. And that's just been a terrible, maybe a good financial move for them, but just a terrible rivalry and sports move for them. But we don't know much about the football team. So tell me 3 other players other than Boomer Esiason and Randy White.
Okay, well, those two are obviously the biggest two, right? The Mansour and Randy White and so forth. But there's 2 other that really kind of made an impact that people don't talk about a lot, right? Frank Wycheck. He was a tight end at Maryland. He was a tight end in Tennessee. He's also famous and somewhat infamous, if you're a Bills fan, of throwing the Music City Miracle pass, right? So he had a great career in Tennessee. He was a great I say great. He was an above average tight end in the NFL. So he's kind of on, like I said, Maryland's not a football school, never has been. I don't believe it will be. Bobby Ross took it as far as it could probably go. Friedgen did all right. So Frank Wycheck would be one. And then the second one, outside of Boomer and Randy, of course, would be Frank Reich. At one point, and he may still have this record, he's led the 2 largest comebacks in college and pro football, right? So one, he was down 32 points. One, he was down 31 points in the second half. And both times he's brought his team back to win. And now he's coaching, and he's doing great things. So outside of that, there's a few receivers that have done okay in the league. But really, Maryland's not a football school. And even when you mention Maryland football, I'm like, okay, I know Boomer. I know, Randy White. And Randy White.
They're from a long time ago. And Frank White's from a long time ago. So, yeah,
there's not a lot there. Now, I will say that Bobby Ross and Ralph Friedgen have done a great job in a school that's not a football school. They both took this team to top 5 status. Actually, Bobby Ross had a national championship or finished second in the country. So he did he did all the right things. He just went on to San Diego, did even better things in the NFL. So,
and I'm a Lions fan, and he actually won a little bit with the Lions. And did probably their last coach to do decent with them.
He can coach, that's for sure.
So the top 5 hoops players at Maryland.
Well, okay. So let's be fair. This is not the 5 greatest, okay? Because there was first
your
off,
5 favorite.
Yeah, you take out McMillan, Elmore, and Lucas because they really finished playing by the time I was 11. I started playing basketball when I was 10, right? So the people that I followed, that I fell in love with, started off with Brad Davis. Now, a lot of folks won't know Brad, but he played 3 years at Maryland, was one of the first hardship cases ever. Went to the Lakers, they cut him, ended up in Anchorage, and ended up being actually a Dallas Maverick for a number of years and did very well there. Outside of Brad, most of the names most people will know. Obviously, Joe Smith had a short career at Maryland because he was so good. He ended up going pro after 2 years. Len Bias, of course, I won't get much into him. Everybody knows what he did. Buck Williams. Buck was a monster. Love Buck Williams on the board.
Should have been a Tar Heel.
No, he was perfect. And then Juan Dixon. Juan, stayed at Maryland for 4 years with Lonnie Baxter and Steve Blake and another other folks, right? And they won the national championship. But Juan was special. Never got into trouble, never did anything wrong, and all he did was just want to win and shoot balls. So loved watching him play too. So those are the top 5 that I'd go with. Now, I will say there's a few others that really made an impact on me in Maryland basketball. Grievous Vasquez, exciting, player to watch. Albert King scored a lot of points, shot a lot too, but he was dynamic. And Walt Williams, who actually
Sox.
Yeah, Walt was he was brought in by Bob Wade and was going to leave when Wade was let go for Gary Williams, but he stuck around and he actually helped Gary Williams turn that program around. So there's a lot of great players out there. Maybe not Carolina deep, but I could keep going. But those are the ones that I have had the joy and privilege of watching for a number of years.
Yeah. So there were great Carolina-Maryland games, and the one that stands out is Bias just going crazy on Carolina in Chapel Hill that one game. that was probably payback for Michael Jordan doing the windmill dunk at the buzzer against Maryland in Colt Fieldhouse. So good trade-off there.
Dean Smith and Lefty, that was a great
God.
They hated each other but respected each other, loved each other all at the same time.
Yeah. They were together so long that there was some continuity there at the end of their careers, a little affection, I'm sure.
I miss the ACC so much. I know we're part of the Big Ten now, but ACC basketball back in the day, man, that was everything. I couldn't get enough of it.
All right, final question. We'll let you go on this one. And April says that we need to have a call where she and Liz participate to talk about the lies that we tell. But here's the question. You've got a choice. You can pick one. You can either have a national championship in football, a national championship in basketball, or one perfect year of marriage. Which would you choose?
All right. I will go back to I've already got the perfect marriage. So I've got a whole lifetime of a perfect marriage, so I'll stay away from that. I'm not Maryland's football program. It would be great if they won one, but I'd take the Maryland basketball championship. I'd take another one in a heartbeat. And this year they might have had a shot at it, but it'll be another 20 years before they get back again, probably.
Is it Jason, Jalen? Who was the tall, skinny kid so good?
Oh, Sticks. Oh, geez. Now I'm forgetting his name. Called him.
Wore the glasses. Yeah. He's good.
He's going pro. He's too skinny.
Yeah.
Too skinny. Yeah.
Well, it's great talking to you. It's great keeping up with you. And we've been friends since we were 13, 14 years old. And I hated that you left because we could have been a backcourt that could have shared in all those losses for me.
With me dishing the ball out, you shooting, we might have actually won 4 games,
Yeah, that's great. Randy, I appreciate you. And I hope you're just such an inspiration. You're funny to see on social media. And this is just a time to encourage people and your friends. I hope you share it and I hope we get a few people that click and smile when they watch us together. But it's great seeing you.
Am, I love you, man. Have a great night.
All right. Love you too. Take care.